Before you forgive her again, just stop. Don't say the words. Don't nod in understanding. Don't reach out to hold her hand in that familiar act of absolution. First, you need to take a deep breath. Real one. One that fills your lungs and pushes against the weight on your chest stand. You need to remember. Not the good times she's likely reminding you of right now. Not the potential of what could be. But the stark, unvarnished reality of what was the last time you stood in this exact spot. Cast your mind back and deliberately replay the scene. Remember how easily the word sorry slipped out? How it seemed to cost her nothing? It arrived so quickly, so smoothly that it felt rehearsed, a line delivered by a skilled actor. And then came the promise, the part that always hooked you, the vow to change. She sounded so convincing, her eyes maybe welling with just the right amount of moisture. Her voice laced with a tremor that felt like genuine regret. In that moment, she painted a picture of a future where this pain would never happen again. In your heart, your desperate, hopeful heart, wanted so badly to believe it. Your heart wasn't foolish for wanting that. Its desire to heal, to mend the tear in your shared world, is a testament to its capacity for love. That longing for peace is what makes you human, and it's that very humanity that she counts on. It was this wanting that made you open the door one more time. You unlocked it, pushed it ajar, and let her step back over the threshold she had so carelessly crossed. And for a little while, it worked. The atmosphere in your life shifted. The laughs returned, feeling real and relieving. The affection resurfaced, a tender touch. A warm glance, all the little languages of love that had gone silent started speaking again. It was like a fever had broken. The relief was so palpable you could almost touch it, and in that warm, hazy glow, you almost forgot why you were hurt in the first place. The memory of your pain became blurry, a distant nightmare fading in the dawn of this reconciliation. But then it began. Not with a bang, but with a slow, creeping chill. It started so subtly, you almost doubted your own perception. The patterns, the very ones that led to the last explosion, began to repeat themselves. It wasn't an immediate return to the worst of it. That would be too obvious, too easy to call out. No, it was a gradual descent, almost predictable in its rhythm. You heard it first in her voice, that same cold, disinterested tone when you asked about her day. A tone that made you feel like an inconvenience. You saw it in the return of that dismissive attitude, the way she would wave away your concerns as if they were trivial, making you feel small and foolish for having them. You felt it in the same emotional distance that settled between you like a thick pane of glass. You could see her on the other side, but you couldn't reach her. And with every cold tone, every dismissive remark, every moment of distance, you found yourself questioning your own sanity all over again. Am I being too sensitive? You'd wonder. Is this really happening, or am I just looking for problems? This self-doubt is the most insidious part of the cycle, the poison that lingers long after the initial wound. Here is the critical distinction you must make, the one that changes everything. The problem was never the act of forgiveness itself. To forgive is a noble human impulse. The problem, the fatal flaw in this painful loop, is that you mistook a period of comfort for genuine, lasting change. You were so starved for peace, so exhausted by the conflict and the aching loneliness, that you convinced yourself she had evolved as a person. You saw the brief ceasefire and interpreted it as the end of the war. In reality, she hadn't evolved. She had simply paused her behavior. She strategically retreated, waiting just long enough for the dust to settle and for you to let down your guard. She allowed you to become comfortable again, to reinvest your hope, to let the walls crumble. Because a wall that is down cannot protect anyone. You have to swallow a difficult truth, and it won't go down easily. When a woman truly, deeply respects you and the relationship you share, she does not need to be forgiven for the same transgression twice. The pain of having hurt you, of realizing she has damaged something precious, is so profound that it catalyzes immediate and visible action. This shift isn't something you have to demand or plead for. It happens organically because the sight of your pain genuinely shakes her. It creates a fundamental discomfort within her that can only be soothed by becoming better. but when her apologies feel like lines from a script she's memorized. When the tone and the timing feel familiar rather than sincerely heartbroken, you are no longer dealing with a guilty conscience. You are standing face to face with manipulation. It's a performance designed not to heal, but to disarm. It's a tactical maneuver to regain lost ground and restore the equilibrium that benefits her. All while you are left believing you are both working towards a common goal. This is the cruel illusion you must see through before you take that next fateful step. It's crucial to understand that for some people, an apology is not a tool for mending. It's a tool for managing. They don't say I'm sorry to heal the relationship or to acknowledge the wreckage they've caused. They say it to reset the balance of power, to pull you back from the edge of walking away and reestablish their control over the emotional landscape. These individuals are master cartographers of the human heart. They have mapped your interior world. They know you are loyal. They have banked on your patience. They have felt the depth of your emotional investment. And with chilling precision, they learn how to use that very empathy, that very strength of character against you. Your goodness becomes the lever they pull, and your hope is the engine that drives the cycle. Watch the pattern the next time you try to create distance. When your silence finally becomes louder than your pleading, she doesn't change her fundamental ways. That would require introspection and effort. Instead, she executes a pivot in her approach. The hardened words soften into a gentle murmur. The defiant eyes that once rolled in frustration now well up with perfectly timed tears. The narrative shifts, and suddenly, she is the victim, misunderstood, overwhelmed, or wounded by your reaction to her behavior. She reframes the story so that your legitimate hurt becomes an overreaction, and her wrongdoing becomes a tragic flaw for which she is now suffering. This is a calculated performance, and because your heart is good, because you are wired to respond to distress with compassion, you fall for the act. Your instinct is to soothe, to rescue, to fix, and in doing so, you absolve her of the need to ever fix herself. This is the point where you must redefine a dangerous misconception. You have been taught that forgiveness is the highest form of compassion. But forgiveness that is granted without any demand for accountability is not compassion. It is self-betrayal. It is a quiet agreement you make with yourself that your peace is negotiable and your boundaries are flexible. Every single time you take her back without witnessing a real, sustained transformation, not just a week of good behavior, but a fundamental shift in character, you are not healing the relationship. You are performing a dangerous kind of reinforcement. You are actively teaching her, through your actions, that you will always return, no matter how deep the cut. You are showing her, in the clearest terms possible, that all she has to do is locate the right combination of words. Summon tears at the pivotal moment, and you will willingly forget the disrespect. This is not love. What you are building is not trust. This is conditioning, pure and simple. You are the subject in a psychological experiment where the reward for bad behavior is reconciliation. The more you participate in this cycle, the more her respect for you quietly erodes. This isn't necessarily because she is a cruel person at her core, but because it is a fundamental law of emotional psychology. People, on a subconscious level, cannot maintain a high value for something they can repeatedly damage without facing any real consequence. Your constant forgiveness delivered too soon and without earned trust confirms a tragic narrative that your love is unconditional, even when hers is transactional. It signals that your commitment remains steadfast, even in the face of her profound inconsistency. You become a fixed point, a constant, and constants are often taken for granted. They lose their novelty and with it, their perceived value. The most devastating part of this entire dynamic is her conscious or subconscious awareness of this entire process. She knows exactly how much you care. She can feel that deep down, you are a builder, not a destroyer. You want to fix what is broken. You believe in redemption. And you would always rather put in the work to repair than to simply walk away. This knowledge, this insight into your soul, is what grants her such immense power. It's not her beauty, nor is it the sweetness of her words in the good times. It is your own hope that she holds on to. Your hope becomes the invisible leash she keeps in her pocket, the moment she feels you slipping. The moment your energy withdraws and your resolve seems to harden, she gives it a sharp, practiced tug. It doesn't take much. One compliment thrown your way, one late-night text filled with vague nostalgia, one carefully worded reminder of how magical things used to be in the beginning, and suddenly, she's back. Not just in your life, but back in your head, renting space once more, derailing your progress and clouding your judgment with the phantom of what once was. This is the core of the trap. The cycle of manipulation does not restart with her transgression. It restarts the very moment your forgiveness is granted. She is freed from the obligation to change because she operates on the proven knowledge that you will always, inevitably, do the emotional work for the both of you. You will forgive. You will rationalize. You will bury the pain. And she can simply resume her behavior once the immediate threat of losing you has passed. The true mechanism of this painful cycle is one you must see with clear eyes. The cycle of manipulation does not officially restart with her next transgression, with the next cold remark or broken promise. No, it restarts at the precise moment you grant your forgiveness. It is your absolution given before it has been earned that flips the switch and resets the clock back to zero, erasing the ledger in her mind. She is liberated from the pressing need to evolve because she operates on a well-documented and repeatedly proven assumption that you will always, inevitably, do the heavy emotional labor for the both of you. You will be the one to swallow your pride, to quiet your justified anger, to bury the fresh memory of your pain deep down inside yourself just to make the relationship functional again. She can comfortably resume her established patterns, because she knows that once the immediate threat of you leaving has been neutralized by your forgiveness, the pressure is off, the storm has passed, and she can emerge from her shelter unchanged. Before you even consider uttering the words, "I forgive you," one more time, you must force yourself to pause and ask one critical, illuminating question. You must look past the tears, ignore the trembling voice, and see through the scripted apology to discern the true engine behind it. Is she apologizing because she has genuinely, deeply understood the pain she has caused you? Can she articulate in her own words, not just her own guilt, but the specific impact her actions had on your spirit, your peace, your sense of security? Or is this performance happening because she is feeling the unsettling tremors of her control over you slipping away? Is she afraid of losing you, or is she afraid of losing the comfort, stability, and emotional validation your presence provides? The honest answer to this single question is the fork in the road that will determine your entire future. It decides whether you will finally begin the true, arduous work of healing, or whether you are merely consenting to restart the same wound, opening it fresh once more, only to have it salted again later. This is where you must redefine what forgiveness actually means. Real healthy forgiveness is not a form of emotional amnesia. It does not require you to forget what happened, to pretend the pain never was, or to offer a clean slate, as if the past has no bearing on the present. That is not forgiveness. That is foolishness, and it leaves you dangerously vulnerable. True forgiveness is an act of wisdom. It is the conscious process of learning the patterns, of finally seeing the data points of her behavior, all the apologies, all the relapses, all the justifications, and connecting them into an undeniable line of truth. It is about recognizing the rhythm of the cycle so thoroughly that you can predict the next beat. This kind of forgiveness allows you to release the burning poison of resentment from your own heart, to wish her well on her journey without feeling any obligation to hand her another map to yours. You can let go of the anger without ever giving her the key to your gate again. Boundaries, in this enlightened state, are not walls built from bitterness to keep the world out. They are sophisticated filters, consciously designed and meticulously maintained, whose sole purpose is to protect the fragile, hard-won peace you are trying to build within yourself. The moment this realization truly clicks into place, a profound shift occurs in your entire perception. You'll begin to observe her behavior not through the warped and cloudy lens of your emotions, your lingering love, your fading hope, your desperate loneliness, but through the clear, objective lens of observable patterns. This new perspective allows you to ask diagnostic questions that cut through the fog. When you gather the courage to express how you feel, does she actually listen? Does she engage with your words, ask clarifying questions, and sit with the discomfort of your hurt? Or does she merely tolerate your speech, waiting impatiently for her turn to talk so she can refute, deflect, or recenter the conversation on her own feelings and her own victimhood? When she makes a new promise to improve, to be more present, to be more thoughtful, does she show a consistent, sustained effort over time? Does the change become a new, reliable part of her character? Or does she make a show of effort for a week, maybe two, only to fall back into the familiar grooves of her old comfort the very moment she senses you have relaxed? That you have been soothed and are no longer a flight risk? These questions are not about assigning blame for the sake of it. They are not about keeping a scorecard to weaponize later. They are tools for gaining clarity, the most precious commodity in any relationship dynamic. Because love, when it is practiced without this foundational clarity, is not love at all, it is chaos. It is a turbulent, disorienting storm, where you are constantly losing your footing, never sure what is real and what is a performance. And forgiveness, when it is offered in the absence of genuine, demonstrable change, is not a noble virtue. It is merely self-destruction, a slow and quiet erosion of your own soul. Disguised with the glowing halo of being the bigger person, you wear that halo, while parts of you are systematically dismantled. This is the crucial crossroads. You can either have the temporary comfort of her presence, or you can have the lasting peace that comes from clarity and self-respect. You cannot have both. The choice, painful as it is finally and completely your own. There comes a point where the most profound act of love you can offer both to yourself and, paradoxically, even to her is not to take her back. It is to find the strength to let her sit, truly sit, in the unmediated reality of what it means to lose you. This is not about punishment. It is about consequence. For a person who has become accustomed to a cycle without cost, who has learned that apologies are a currency that can always purchase forgiveness, the only language that can possibly break through the fortress of their immaturity is the silent, stark finality of your absence. Walking away is that language. It is the one sentence she cannot reframe, the one argument she cannot win, the one performance for which there is no audience. When you remove yourself, you remove the stage upon which this entire drama has played out. The moment you make the conscious decision to stop the automatic granting of your forgiveness, the shift in the atmosphere is both immediate and profound. The silence you leave behind is not a passive silence, not a mere absence of sound. It becomes a deafening presence. At first, she will likely try to convince herself that this is just another variation of your anger. A storm that will, as it always has, eventually pass. She will replay the old familiar script in her mind. She causes hurt. She offers an apology. You reconcile, and comfort is restored. This is the map she has always used to navigate your relationship. But when days begin to turn into weeks, and your energy remains unmoved, when you do not answer the late-night calls, when your social media shows no trace of anguish, when mutual friends report that you seem focused and calm, that is when the first flickers of genuine panic will begin to ignite within her. This panic will be quiet, internal, and likely shrouded in denial. She will scroll through your old text threads, reread your final messages, and overanalyze every last word, searching for a crack in your resolve. Some hidden clue that you are still secretly aching for her. Because that hidden ache, that softness, is what she has always relied upon. But this time, she is not facing the man who used to forgive her. That man is gone. She is now facing the man she created by breaking him one too many times. And this new version of you does not react from a place of raw emotion anymore. He observes. He remembers. He processes. And then he simply moves on. This is when you will witness her attempts to re-enter your life. It's not with a grand gesture, but with small, subtle, probing incursions. The accidental, like on a social media post from months ago. The random, out of the blue text that reads, "I hope you're doing well." The nostalgic memory she casually brings up through a mutual friend. It's designed to test the temperature of the water she once controlled. It is vital that you recognize these for what they are. They are not signs of love. They are signals of guilt and confusion, disguised as curiosity. She is not checking on you. She is conducting a reconnaissance mission to see if she still holds influence over your emotional state. As long as you respond, even with polite indifference, she can still feel relevant. She can still tell herself that she matters to you. But when you do not, when you remain kind but distant, calm but entirely unavailable, that is when the truth finally, irrevocably, begins to sink in. The power she once held over you has evaporated. For a person who relies on emotional control as a foundational element of their relationships, this loss of power feels far worse than heartbreak. It is an ego death. Because she is no longer the one who left. She is now the one who is being left. She is not the one ignoring. She is the one being ignored. This role reversal is a psychological earthquake that can shake her to her core. You see, your forgiveness has always been her emotional currency. It is the fuel that keeps her world spinning. When she knows with certainty that she can always come back, she is never forced to confront the full, unadulterated weight of her actions. But the moment you take that currency off the table, when you stop supplying her with your time, your validation, your emotional attention, her world grinds to a halt. That is when she is forced to begin understanding what your forgiveness actually represented. It wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was a constant reaffirming signal to her that she still mattered, that she was still worth the immense cost of your pain. Now, when her name no longer triggers an emotional response from you, when her presence no longer has the capacity to shift the tectonic plates of your inner peace, she is left alone in the emptiness she herself created. That emptiness becomes her teacher. This is the moment where your own power becomes not just a feeling, but a visible force. It is not manifested in how loud you can shout or how cutting your words can be. It is demonstrated in how utterly untouched you have become by her chaos. You do not need to prove anything to her anymore. Your stance is not one of anger or bitterness. You are simply done. You have borne witness to what these patterns do. You have learned how apologies lose all meaning when they are used as tactical tools instead of truthful admissions. When you finally reach a state of inner wholeness, the change is not just internal. It begins to radiate outward, altering the very frequency on which you operate. The desperate need for external validation that once drove you into unhealthy cycles simply evaporates. You stop seeing relationships as a frantic search for completion and start seeing them for what they truly are at their best. The conscious, deliberate choice of two whole people to share their journeys, not two broken individuals trying to use each other as bandages for their wounds. The chaotic highs and lows that you once mistook for passion now feel jarring and immature. In their place, a profound craving for stability takes root. You begin to value presence over drama, quiet confidence over loud declarations, and the steady hum of peace over the addictive rush of emotional turbulence. This fundamental shift in your core being changes everything. It acts as a filter for your entire life. The kind of people you attract begins to change. You no longer draw in those who see your empathy as a weakness to be exploited, but those who respect it as a strength to be admired. The kind of energy you are willing to entertain transforms. You have no patience for games, mixed signals, or emotional theater. Most importantly, the peace you have fought so hard to cultivate becomes non-negotiable. We protect it with a quiet ferocity. You start to value your own solitude more than the draining company of those who disrupt your equilibrium. You begin to prioritize your own energy above anyone's fleeting approval. This transformation is palpable. Women, especially those who are accustomed to wielding emotional influence, can sense this change in your presence even before you speak a word. They feel a new stillness in your energy, a self-containment that is neither cold nor distant, but solid and unshakable. The same woman who once felt empowered by testing your patience will now hesitate before testing your boundaries. She will notice that your tone remains even when she attempts to flirt or provoke, that your mood is no longer a slave to her attention or her withdrawal, that your inner peace does not fracture when she tries to create chaos. This is the silent authority of a man who is simply done with the chasing, Done with the convincing. Done with the exhausting labor of explaining his own worth. And here lies the beautiful, cosmic irony. The less you need them, the more they are drawn to you. This is not a manipulative tactic you employ. It is the natural consequence of your own evolution. You become magnetic, not because you are playing games, but because you have elevated yourself beyond the entire playing field. Your self-control becomes a quiet display of strength. Your healthy detachment lends you an air of mystery. The profound peace you carry within becomes the most seductive quality you possess. You have become the man who can and will walk away from anything that threatens his hard-won inner stability. For those who have only known love as a form of control or chaos, this emotional solidity is irresistibly compelling, but a crucial wisdom now tempers this newfound attention. You are no longer easily impressed by mere interest. You understand that not all attention is a form of admiration. Some of it is simple curiosity. Some of it is envy for the peace you exhibit. And some of it is a fear of missing out on the man you have become. You learn to discern the difference. You no longer feel the need to be pulled into every orbit that notices you. You have mastered the art of protecting your focus, your time, and most importantly, your soul. This is how a man moves with intention, not reaction. He is the center of his own universe, and he decides what and who deserves to orbit him. This new version of you doesn't waste energy arguing with the past. He learns from it. You no longer blame her for breaking you. In a strange, transformative alchemy, you find a way to thank her for the awakening her actions forced upon you. You see that without the searing pain, you would have never been forced to forge your strength. Without the betrayal, you would have never discovered the necessity of your own boundaries. Without the silence she forced upon you, you would have never learned the incredible power of self-control. Every heartbreak, in this reframed light, becomes a form of emotional alchemy. Turning the base metal of your suffering into the gold of self-mastery, this is a level of awareness many never reach, because they choose to remain trapped in the prison of their anger, rather than using the key of awareness to set themselves free. From this vantage point, you can look upon your past without the sting of grief, and instead feel a genuine sense of gratitude. You see how every collapse was a necessary redirection, steering you unerringly toward your own becoming. Life begins to unfold with a new sense of effortlessness, not because it is without challenge, but because you have stopped resisting the lessons of what is gone and have fully opened your arms to what is next. You stop measuring your worth by the intensity of someone's love for you. You stop basing your peace on someone's presence in your life. You have reclaimed your emotional sovereignty. You don't chase love. You attract alignment. You don't beg for attention. You command respect. You don't seek closure from others. You create it from within. This is the final turning point, where you stop living as a man who was once deeply hurt and start thriving as a man who has been fundamentally reborn. You have become what you never dreamed was possible, a man who is no longer defined by his wounds, but illuminated by his wisdom, a man who is finally and completely whole.